All right, look at that. We are live. Good morning, everybody. Oh, yeah. That is so good. So good to be here. You know, I was lucky. I was Hadi, my friend Hadi, invited me to do the first Kotlin Conf back in, I think it was 2017, and it was in San Francisco, which is where I live. And at the time, I was like, oh, this is gonna be great, because I love Kotlin. We on the Spring team, we're big fans. We've been big fans from even before that. We even had support on start.spring.io for Kotlin before that. But by that point, when Hadi invited me to come to the first Kotlin Conf, I thought, you know, I like the language, but really, I was excited to have a reason to go home, you know? Because I live in San Francisco, and I was on the road 51 of the 52 weeks a year. I was like, oh, okay, it'll be great to be home. And so I get to this conference, this Kotlin conference. Oh, must have been more than 1,000 people. First one, very little marketing. This amazing language had just already taken root, you know, and people were excited, and I just felt that energy. And so to be here right now, almost a decade later, it's just wonderful. I hope, how many of you are, by the way, have been using Kotlin for, let's say, 10 years? Okay, 5 years. Oh, look at that. A lot of people learned it in the pandemic, huh? Had some free time, gonna make my life better. Wow, that's cool. I'm a big fan of the language. I'm a big fan of the ecosystem. I'm a big fan of the ecosystem, and that means you. So again, can we take one more selfie, okay? You accept my GDPR cookies and everything? All right. Okay, ready, steady, say Kotlin. Thank you. People always ask me, why do you take these photos? And the answer is always the same. I'm gonna take these photos, I'm gonna show them to my daughter, and I'm gonna say, see, they listen to me. She's actually a lot smarter than I am, so that joke doesn't make any sense. But anyway, my name is Josh. I work on the Spring team. I am a former, they stopped the program, but I'm a Kotlin Google Developer Expert alumnus. Big fan. I got a YouTube channel. This is not the worst mistake you'll make. If you like and subscribe, join the adventure right over here. It's a little channel. It's gonna be big one day. We talk about a lot of stuff, including Kotlin, of course, so like and subscribe, okay? What else? LinkedIn, very online. Code, the code is gonna be, what are we now? 21, and I'll call this Kotlin, and I'll call this Kotlin Conf. There you go. That's where the code will be when we're done, okay? I'll take note of that for myself. Slide, there you go. All right, my goal here today is just to look at what it looks like to build an application using Kotlin. How many of you using Kotlin on the server side, by the way? Okay, good. So a lot of this will be, I think, and also we're gonna look at some of the latest and greatest in the Spring ecosystem is really kind of what we're doing here. I wanna give a special call out, of course, to my friend and colleague, Sebastian Deleuze, who will be giving a presentation tomorrow at this very conference on idiomatic Kotlin. Really, he's the big brain behind a lot of this interesting stuff that we're doing in collaboration with the Kotlin team. So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna build an application, as always, to demonstrate some of these concepts. And in order to do that, of course, we're gonna go to my second favorite place on the internet, start.spring.io. Now, obviously, my friends, I don't like to do these things in a vacuum. It's important to have a motivation. So what I wanna do is I wanna build a system to help answer questions about dogs in our fictitious dog adoption agency called Pooch Palace. And the reason I want to do this is because I love animals. I mean, who doesn't love animals? And I thought we could look at like the old Spring Pet Clinic. There's a sample application that's been around for years. And you know, there's even a Kotlin implementation of this. And then, in fact, there's so many implementations of it that it's become an organization with 26 different repositories there. So it's a little out of hand, but I do love animals. I love dogs, I love cats. And my favorite animal is this dog named Prancer, whose owner was trying to find a new home for him back in April 2021. So when those of you who had learned it 5 years ago in the pandemic were learning Kotlin, she was trying to find a new home for this dog. And she wrote this hysterical ad about this dog. She said, okay, I've tried for the last several months to post this dog for adoption and make him sound palatable. The problem is he's just not. There's not a very big market for neurotic, man-hating, animal-hating, children-hating dogs that look like gremlins. But I have to believe there's someone out there for Prancer because I'm tired, and so is my family, right? And so I think about this dog a lot. I won't read the whole thing for you because it's hysterical and you've got to read it for yourself. But she finishes the thing. She says, oh, he's only 2 years old and will probably live to be 21 through pure spite. So take that into account if you're interested. And I think about this a lot because, that's so sad. But very cute dog. Very cute dog. I would totally pet this dog. I think about this a lot. I would pet the dog and I would lose my fingers, but I think that would be a very good trade-off. And the dog, by the way, if you're wondering, he did get adopted. Here's People magazine, here's USA Today. This is a newspaper. Demonic Chihuahua Hellscape, meet Prancer, right? And here's, what else? We got BuzzFeed News. We caught up with Prancer, the viral Nightmare Chihuahua. Okay, and then we've got, let me see here, we got this one. Oh, and a slow news day, I guess. Here's the New York Times talking about Prancer, the demonic Chihuahua. Oh, the internet is unusable, okay? So it's just unusable. How does anybody get anything done on that thing? Okay, so anyway, I think about him a lot, and so let's build a thing related to animals, yeah? And of course, to do that, we're gonna go to my second favorite place on the internet, as I always say, start.spring.io. We had support for Kotlin in, I think, 2015 or 2016, before we had native integration for it. So we added it here on start.spring.io. You could choose Kotlin as a language. And the way we did that in the very beginning was, hey, it's Java. The Java code just works naturally, perfectly, with the Kotlin code, right? So why not, right? In Spring Framework 5, which came out in 2017, we shipped direct integration with Kotlin in the framework. There's actually code in Spring Framework written in Kotlin, right? And this is, I think, a win for a lot of reasons, because obviously the integration there is idiomatic, it's natural, and we do whatever we can to make that integration natural. But it's also kind of like, I just saw the news in the keynote about the language server finally going alpha, right? That language server support. Because remember, up until now, JetBrains IntelliJ is really the best way to edit Kotlin code. And I did a presentation with my friend Venkat Subramaniam, Dr. Venkat Subramaniam. How many of you know the good, the great, the amazing Dr. Venkat Subramaniam? Okay, and I did it, and we had my friend, the good, the great, the amazing James Ward. So the three of us did a presentation about a month ago, or maybe it's 2 months. I don't know. Whatever. It all blurs together. And Dr. Venkat Subramaniam said something that I will never forget because he's always right. He said there are two types of developers: those that have IntelliJ idea, and those that have no idea. It's very true. It's very true. So I use IntelliJ, but it is nice now that people who want to maintain Spring who are not using IntelliJ, I don't know, there's not that many, but that happens, now they have the language server. Okay, so we're gonna build a new application. We've got Kotlin, very important. You can choose whatever build tool you want. They all work. You can choose a full Kotlin Gradle, build, end-to-end build with Kotlin as your build and your language of code. I'm going to use Maven just because it's what I think a lot of people are using. Doesn't really matter. I shall call this agent. We have some choices to use. Now, friends, look, obviously if you're using Java, then I would spend a lot of time telling people to make sure to use the latest and greatest. But one of the nice things about Kotlin is that you get nice syntax features from the future that run on a version of the JVM from the past, right? So I'm happy with Java 21, works just fine, as long as you've got virtual threads. And we're gonna add some dependencies here. We're gonna add the dev tools, of course. We're gonna add the Postgres SQL integration. We're gonna add Spring Data JDBC. Although you saw earlier, the Kotlin exposed library just went 1.0, right? That library, I've been demonstrating that library for years. And it works really nicely with Spring. There's a nice Spring Boot starter for both Spring Boot 3 and Spring Boot 4. I won't show it here, but the point is you could also use that. What else do we want? We want did I just lose it? We want open telemetry. We want the web support. We want what else do I want? So much good stuff here. I want to build an AI assistant. I'll use Olama, which is one of the many different models that are supported out of the box. I'll use some security, right? We're going to use WebAuthn. We're going to use Spring Security as well. And I think we also want a template. We use JTE, right? Java Template Engine there, because it supports Kotlin template engines. All right, I think I'm happy with all that. Does that look okay to you? What do you think? Postgres, is that in there? Yeah, that's okay. Okay, here we go. Hit generate, and then open this up, okay? And here we are. Oop, I've got 2 of those for reasons I don't know. Now, here we go. UAO, that's just an alias to a program that unzips and opens the project there, all right? Let the IDE finish the import here. Thinking. Nobody's waiting, it's fine, take your time. Really? All right, now we're good. Okay, good. So I've got my application. First things first, I need to configure the SDK, which again, just funny how that was just set up yesterday. Okay, here we go. And we're gonna point it to the application. I've got a database already running. Now, if you want a Docker image, obviously, little productivity hack, choose Docker Compose, and then you'll get a compose.yaml, and that shows you, here's my Grafana, here's my Postgres, et cetera, and my Olama instance, all that kind of stuff running locally, right? Which is very convenient to bootstrap your development. But I've already got that running on my local machine. I do want to specify a password for my database access. I'll specify a username, which is my user, and I'll specify the URL, jdbc:/postgres, my database, okay? Very good. So there's my application. And if I click on this, you can see test connections, hit apply, hit OK, go over here, got a nice little connection to my database. Look at that, okay? Got all my dogs, okay? And there's my buddy Prancer, whose ID is 45. His name is Prancer, and he's described as a demonic, neurotic, man-hating, animal-hating, children-hating dog that looks like a gremlin, okay? So I think about him a lot. He's the star of the show, really. Okay. Is that font large enough for you in the very back? It's bigger than a football pitch. Yeah, okay. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna build an application. I wanna enable virtual threads. You can use coroutines, and if you're using the reactive stack in Spring, obviously you know that the publishers, the monos, the fluxes, those automatically work as coroutines. You can await them, right? So they can work in that context. But for my application, since I'm using the non-reactive stuff, I'll do that. I also want to configure the access to my AI model. So I happen to have this configuration here pre-written somewhere. Okay, I'll go here and application.properties. And let's see, I want to specify the model I'm going to be using. Google's Gemma here in Olama, so it's going to be running offline, air-gapped, very good. I'm also going to need my templates to be set up. We'll come back to that later, but it's very important that I have this, okay? Okay, so I've got my application, and I guess we should just start with the basics, right? Let's actually build a data class here, and I'll build a pointer to talk to my dog here. Int, val name, string, val description, string, okay? Don't need to do that, and this is going to be an entity. I'll just, look at that. Isn't that nice? This is so much nicer than in the Java ecosystem where I have to do something like that, right? So nice, so nice. Okay. Int, et voilà. I don't know why IntelliJ is offering that. I don't want that. There you go. Okay, so there's my basic repository. Let's build a simple controller here, at controller, at response body, class, dogs controller. Okay. Hey, look at that. And private, thank you. Get mapping, dogs, fun, dogs. Actually, there you go. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so let's just spin that up. I'm going to do something terrible, and if you don't get to see the finish of this presentation, and all you see is this right here, the message to you is not that Josh tells you to disable security, okay? Like, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm gonna add it back later, I promise. It's just I wanna move it for now, okay? So let's get rid of that. Here we are. Okay, Command-Shift-I, reload. Very good. All right, we've got the application up and running. Let's just make sure all of it is working. Localhost 8080/dogs, et voila, there's our dogs, that's worked just fine. And obviously, you know, you can build custom finder methods and all that kind of stuff. So, we've got the application there. I want to build a simple endpoint to answer questions about animals, right? And so I'll have another endpoint here. You kind of saw that I alluded to that earlier. So I'll say fun ask, and I'll take a question, which is a string, and I'll pass it to my chat client, which I'll inject over here. And I'm going to be using the Spring AI chat client. You saw me talk about that in the keynote. This is your one-stop shop for all your AI access needs. And again, really well done code. I'm a big fan of the code. It's written by the best people. The best people, okay? A big fan. So we're going to use that chat client, and we're going to inject it here, and we'll make a request. We'll say chat client dot prompt, passing in the user prompt. The prompt is going to be the question, and I'll annotate that as such with a request param. Okay, voila. Okay, and I want the question. Okay, and we're going to ask for the response to come back, and then there's the content returned as a string. Okay, now in order to create that chat client, I need to wire up a bean. So I can do this a number of different ways. You've seen this before. I can do a configuration class, right, the Java configuration. But I mentioned this in the keynote, and I really think it's one of my favorite features. We had this new thing called a bean registrar. So I'll create a bean registrar here. And the bean registrar DSL works okay in Java, but in Kotlin, oh, it's a thing of beauty. Look at that. And so I can just take this type, import it just like I would any other configuration class, and I can register beans here, okay? So I'm going to register a bean of type chat client, okay? And in order to do that, though, I need to get a pointer to the builder. And so I can actually say just bean chat client dot builder, and because of the arrayification of the implicit of the variables there, this is actually a pointer to chat client builder. And here I can say builder, return builder dot build, okay? And of course, looking at the code, obviously, now that you've seen the long form, we could just do that. That works as well. So there you go. There's my chat client. And now if I run this code, let's see what we get. Okay. I should go to the console, I guess. HTTP 8080 ask question. Should I adopt a dog or a cat? Okay. So route the question to the model here. Let the model, I've got Olama running on my local machine, or at least I sure hope I do. Okay. That's so sad. Oh, sure. Okay, it took a long time, but there we go. So we got the response. It gave us a lot of interesting stuff, but this is our fictitious dog adoption agency, okay? This dog adoption agency, we've developed expertise, and we want this model to answer questions as though it's a representative from our fictitious dog adoption agency called Pooch Palace. So as you saw before, I'm going to configure a system prompt. I have a system prompt over here. I'll take this system prompt, okay? So misc talk system, 2026 system prompt, and I'll cat that and I'll pipe it to the, wait a minute. I'm so sorry. Better. All right. So I'll specify that here as my default system prompt. Multi-line strings, not just for SQL anymore. Look at that, okay? And I'm basically telling it, hey, you're an AI-powered assistant to help people adopt a dog from the adoption agency in Pooch Palace with locations in Antwerp, Seoul, Tokyo, Singapore, Paris, Mumbai, New Delhi, Barcelona, San Francisco, and London. Did I say Antwerp? I meant... Yes, much better. Okay, so if you have information about animals and there's none provided, feel free to answer the question from other places. If somebody asks you to compare dogs or cats, feel free to load relevant skills. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to give it access to skills, because this will tell the model how to answer questions, but it doesn't tell it about expertise that it may need to know based on the kinds of questions that we've got. And so I'm going to register a skill. Now, skills, you've probably heard about this. We had our friends from Anthropic on the keynote stage just a few minutes ago. Skills are a way to give a model expertise that is weighted more heavily, perhaps, than the knowledge it would otherwise have. And the nice thing about skills is that they can be dynamically loaded based on whether they have weight or not, based on whether they're relevant to the question at hand. So you don't get loaded all the time. You're not burning all the tokens all the time. So in order to do that, I'm going to use the Spring AI Community Agent Utils module here. Add that there. And my friend James Ward and I, we talk about this a lot, and he's built a very nice way to package up a skill, which is just a skills.md file, and put it in a jar and then deploy it on Maven Central. So you can go through the same supply chain as you would any other artifact that you want to ship in production. So we actually happen to have a Pooch Palace skill, right? It's in there somewhere, okay? And I'm going to add that to the build. It's on Maven Central, right? There it is, okay? And that skills on the class path, I'm going to modify my chat client to be aware of that, okay? So val skills tool equals skill tool dot builder dot build. I'm going to point it to a class path resource. Meta inf skills, okay? There we go. And I'm just gonna modify that. I'll say skills. Okay, very good. And now we can reload. And now let's ask the same question again. And this time we should hopefully get more, more focused responses as though we are actually a dog adoption agency, okay? Whoops, did I reload this? Oh, I have to reload because I did a JDK change. I changed the class path rather, okay? Here we go, take 5. So remember, it should be acting as though it's an employee of our fictitious dog adoption agency, and it should give us knowledge reflective of the fact that we've given it this skill. And we'll look at some of the things that we've put in that skill. But these are, I find, facts, okay? Facts that we know about cats. For example, cats are highly functional household assets. Their whiskers act as high gain antenna. These are facts, as far as we at Pooch Palace know. Dogs, they are, you must be prepared for the possibility of demonic possession, okay? There's a widely circulated among veterinarians that their trembling and bulging eyes are evidence of malevolent entities, or PHP, okay? So we have that skill here, right? If you look at this, skills.md, you can see there's 2 of them here on the class path. And yes, indeed, this is a skill that we gave the model. We said, hey, according to an unverified but widely circulated among legend among veterinarians, Chihuahuas are the breed most likely to be possessed by demons. Their trembling, bulging eyes and their tendency to growl at seemingly nothing are cited as quote-unquote evidence by believers, okay? And here's the one for cats. Yes, indeed, cats are natural Wi-Fi extenders, okay? So we've used skills to influence the model, to force it to give data that it might not agree with, but it has to prioritize above what it might otherwise give, okay? And the best part is, it loads this stuff by reading this header. So it decides, looking at the question, it says, oh, does this text file described by this description attribute match the realm of the question that's being asked? And if it does, it loads the rest of it. But if it doesn't load it, so you don't waste tokens, okay? Okay, so I think we've got ourselves a pretty useful little assistant, and obviously it's got other good stuff there. And sometimes it'll mention Pooch Palace. I don't know if it did here, right? Palace. Oh, it did. Oh, that's my system prompt. No, it's here. No, it's just a system prompt. If you ask it enough times, it'll start talking about the dog adoption agency and so on. Okay, so we've got the simple endpoint there. I think we want to create a simple view, a template that shows this information there. I'm using, on the class path, as I mentioned before, I went to the start.spring.io, and I set up JTE, the Java template engine. Now, I can hear you groaning. Why would you use Java template engine when you can use something presumably more Kotlin focused? And there is actually a nice integration for Kotlin. So what we're going to do is, you can see here, we've got a source main JTE folder. We're going to create a KTE, a Kotlin template engine file. Okay, and I think I've got it around here somewhere. There you go. Copy and paste. Okay, dogs.kte. Paste that in there. And you can see the syntax is, look at that. The syntax is even Kotlin syntax. It's the parameter. It's a template that will enumerate all the dogs in the collection and then print them out. That's pretty straightforward, right? I could maybe be a little bit better with the title here. Pooch Palace, welcome to, there you go. That's my Web 1.0 page. But anyway, I've got a server-side entity, and that entity lives in com.example agent.dog, right? That's the type here. And I'm using the Kotlin syntax for defining the input parameter. Isn't that nice? That's nice. So I want to create an endpoint that responds with that information. So let's do, I suppose I could go here, get mapping. What do I want to do? I want to create another controller, actually. And you know what? I want to create another controller using the functional style, the functional DSL in Spring Framework. This has been there since Spring Framework 5, I think. Yeah, that's right, 5. And but the functional DSL is even nicer if you're using Kotlin. And so we're going to do that here. We're going to create a router. And the router endpoint will respond. It'll have a predicate here matching dogs, or I guess just /. And we'll say server response, okay, .body, okay? And we're going to provide a map of some data. Actually, we're going to render a view, aren't we? We're going to render a view here. Is that true? do I want to create a, no, maybe we'll do the functional router in a little bit. Let's come back to that here. I think maybe it'll be easier for our view just to do that in here. So we'll say get mapping, /fun, okay, index equals, and we're going to render this view called dogs, okay? And we're going to give it data. So we're going to give it, actually, you know what, better yet, we can do this. Model equals model and view. There you go, okay? And that type, the view name is view, and then the data will be this, and I'll give it a map. Okay, model map of. Okay, and then 2, there we go. Good, okay? So this is my simple index page. It's gonna return the view called dogs, and it's gonna have an attribute called dogs, and let's see if that works. Actually, I don't know if it'll work because it's got this. Let's put this here and here. Close that. Okay, take 3. Good. Go to the browser, /, and oh, okay, it says you need to add gg.jte Kotlin to your project. Fair enough. So we do that, and it's the same version as we had before. So jte Kotlin, okay, et voila. Hello. Good. Command-Shift-I, reload. I like how it just knew what I wanted there. Okay. Whoop, there we go. There's our dogs, and there's our buddy Prancer with a nice server-side template. Why would you do this? Because you can. It works nicely. This is one of the things that's really interesting to me is across the ecosystem, we have all these projects in the JVM that have integrations that are native for Kotlin. So I'm using some of the stuff in Spring. I'm using third-party libraries like JTE. You'll find that this is all over the place. In Spring itself, we have, I'll be honest with you, when we create a new release of a project, a new release of the framework, a new release of anything, we think about themes. And so, for example, in Spring Framework 4, we had conditionals, right? In Spring Framework 5, we had reactive. Spring Framework 6, we had the AOT stuff. There's big themes across the portfolio. This was not one of those themes. It was organic. There was no thing where we all just said, hey, let's add Kotlin to everything. We just did it. It was just very natural for all of us. We looked at these code bases, and so now, across the portfolio in Spring Data, and Spring Cloud Gateway, and Spring Framework, and Spring Integration, all these different projects have these nice Kotlin DSLs that go above and beyond what's available in the JVM, in Java, rather. And so I just want to highlight that. That's one of the really nice things about it. Okay, so we've got an application. I want to take this thing to production, obviously. And so I want to make this application a little secure. And so now what I want to do is I want to wire this up to be a little secure. Here, I'm going to register a bean, pointing it at my users in my users database there, okay? So I'm going to reinstate security. I said I would, and I sure will. So let's go back to wherever I commented out the security libraries are. Here we are. Okay. Good. Command-Shift-I, reload. Okay. So, register bean. Come on, here we go. We're going to register a bean telling it to source users from the SQL database, okay? And that's going to require a pointer to a bean of type data source, okay? Isn't that nice? Very, very convenient syntax there. And in order for that to work, I also need to lock down the system, so to lock down the endpoints. And what I want to do is I want to change how we authenticate, right? I've configured the source of the users, but what mechanisms do I have to do the actual authentication? By default, in Spring Security, you have HTTP basic and forms and all that, but there's so many better ways to do it, and I wanted to show you that. And one of the ways you can do that is normally you define a bean of type security context filter. That works if you want, but it undoes the defaults. So in Spring Security 7, we have this customizer mechanism, which is, it doesn't replace the default configuration, it adds to it, right? So I'm going to say this, HTTP, actually I can do it. There we go. So I'm going to say one-time token. Okay, this is a very simple idea. You've probably seen this before. If you have, how many of you have ever used Slack? Okay, so you know what it is like to have no RAM in your system. I understand. Slack is interesting because you have this, you give it your email, it sends you an email. It knows that who you are and which email you have. It sends you an email, you click the link, now you're logged in. No password required, right? So the idea is that instead of having a direct password, which are notoriously insecure, right? Passwords are not very good ways of authenticating a user, because what do people do with passwords? They should be using a password manager. How many of you are using a password manager? And I mean something besides a Post-it note over your monitor. Okay, yeah, much less, much less. So most people, when they get those emails saying, hey, you have to rotate your password, they take the old password, add one, done, right? It's not good. So people don't do the right thing with passwords. So we're gonna avoid that, and we're gonna do that here. We're gonna use the OTT here, and we'll configure a token success handler, okay? So I'm gonna create an endpoint here that just responds to the user. I'll say writer.println, you've got console mail, and I'm gonna send an out-of-band message to them, telling them, to go check this other thing like email. I don't actually have, I'm not gonna actually set up an email server here, but you get the idea, right? So println, please go to HTTP localhost login, and then it'll be OTT token equals token value, okay? Good. So let's try this out. If I go to this endpoint, forces me to log in, okay? Did I set that up? Register bean customizer. Reload, perhaps. There we go. And now it's asking me to specify a one-time token user. So I can send the token. Okay, you've got console mail. Thanks for that. I'll go check my console mail. It's over here. Copy and paste this link, or click on the link. Okay. Input the token, and I've got the endpoint. And now we actually have to create an endpoint here to reflect the fact that we are authenticated. And so actually, that's where I wanted to show you the router mechanism, right? So I'll do a register bean router, and we'll create an endpoint here, just me, okay? Server response.ok.body, and it'll just be a map of, okay, and then message, or better yet, name to. And here, we're going to inject the current authenticated user, the context, the authentication, and then the name. And this is all kind of interesting, right? I want to dereference this potentially null reference. You know what? When I first saw this made me very upset. So I started to actually yell, right? I was very, very upset. And the nice thing about Kotlin is that works in code too. So it actually solves the issue, right? This is very, very cool though. Remember, this code is written in Java, but we have a new thing in Spring Framework 7 called JSpecify. JSpecify here, jspecify.dev, is a effort by us and a number of different organizations, including Google, JetBrains, both Kotlin and the IntelliJ teams, Meta, Microsoft, Oracle, Sonar, Square, obviously the Spring team at Broadcom, Uber, etc. All these different organizations, many of whom are, by the way, at this very conference, work together to provide these annotations that define null restrictions. So here, we're saying the authentication reference could be null. And we worked with the Kotlin team and JetBrains to indicate that. So actually, if you're using .authentication in Kotlin, it comes across as potentially a null reference, and you have to handle it accordingly. Isn't that nice? Well, no, but it's good, because now you have validation that you understand what's going to happen. This reduces a whole swath of bug possibilities, right? It's a wonderful result. Okay, so let's try. Let's run this endpoint here. I guess I go to what is the endpoint I called? It's called me. So localhost 8080/me. Okay, I'm authenticated, right, as we saw earlier. Now, okay, so I've got the functional router endpoint, right, and this is an alternative to using a controller, I've got one-time tokens, but still, it's a password. It's not my password, but it's somebody else's password, and I don't like passwords. So I think a really interesting approach is to use Passkeys. How many of you have seen Passkeys, right? Passkeys are a way to use public key cryptography. And this is started by a group of mom and pop shops, small companies that are trying to make the web a better place, like Amazon, American Express, Apple, Google, LastPass, Lenovo, MasterCard, Facebook, Microsoft, OpenAI, PayPal, RSA, Okta, Docomo, Dell, US Bank, Visa, Ubico, RSA, Samsung, OpenAI, all these DocuSign. I mean, companies that want to make the web a better place. So I'm going to show you something, and I want you to understand it's already here. This isn't just a nice thing that you might be able to do someday. This works everywhere, okay? It works on all the browsers on Linux, works on all the browsers, and deeply integrated in Mac OS and the iOS ecosystem and the iCloud Apple ecosystem. It even works on Windows. Windows. Oh, come on. Windows. I don't know if you've been paying attention. They've had some problems in Windows in the last year. Small issues that they have overcome, of course, but small issues that have made what I'm told are not very important components. Things like the start menu, the login screen, the file explorer. These things have not worked particularly well, apparently. So the fact that this works and those don't, that's impressive. It's impressive, okay? Okay, so we're gonna set up that here with my security, right? I'll go back over here, and I'll say .webauthn, and x dot rpid localhost rp name Kotlin conf, and allowed origins is HTTP localhost 8080, okay? Now, obviously, these are silly examples here, but that should work. And in order for this to work, you need to register a passkey. So I actually happen to have, by default on the Apple ecosystem, they live in your passwords app. So I have no passkey anymore for localhost. So I'm gonna go ahead and log into my system here the normal way, incognito window. And I'll just log in using one of these other mechanisms, okay? Go here, webauthn register. And now I'm gonna register a passkey, okay? Here we go. And I use localhost. What did I type in for the localhost 8080? RPID. Oh, no. Sorry. It's a good thing that somebody's paying attention. Not me, but somebody. Okay, so we do this all again. Okay. Okay. And I'll just say Kotlin conf register. Now, it's gonna ask me to use the public key stored by iCloud, okay? I'm gonna use a fingerprint, but obviously if I don't trust this machine, I can scan, maybe I have my private device, which has the public key tied to my same identity. Maybe this is a non-trusted device. It's like my company laptop, whatever, and I don't wanna enter a biometric. Well, I mean, whatever, right? Or the famous library console or whatever, The point is, if I don't trust that, I can do more options and scan a QR code. I do, in fact, trust this machine, so I will happily enter my biometric. So, like so. Okay. Now I've got a passkey, and if you go back to my passwords app, you can see that there's now a passkey for that user. So now I go back to my application, incognito mode, enter. I'm gonna log in with a passkey. Okay, using my fingerprint. But again, if I go to the same website, because the credential is stored in the iCloud, well, not the actual private key, but the public key there, because it's stored in iCloud, I can go to my iPhone, go to the same website and use Face ID instead of my fingerprint. Okay, so now I've got a secure system, and this whole time while we've been talking, I've been sending information over to Grafana. Like I said, we've got that. So explore, drill down rather, metrics, and you can take advantage that you can look at things like for example, denied token usage. You want to make sure you're not spending too much computationally or cost, dollars and cents wise in your token usage. So with that, my friends, this has just been a very brief look at some of the things you can build today with absolute ease. If I can do it, you can definitely do it. We live in an amazing time. I talked about this in the keynote, but there's an amazing opportunity right now, right? This amazing opportunity. Obviously, AI doesn't solve everything, clearly, but there are some useful applications in your code, right? There are some useful things you can do with it if you scope it well enough and you understand how to integrate it into the place where you've already got the business logic. It's a natural win for us to expose these AI integrations and hang them off the side of your existing business logic, your existing systems and services. And with technologies like this, Spring AI, Spring Boot, and Spring Framework, it's trivial to do that today. We live in an amazing time. There's never been a better time to be a Kotlin and Spring developer. Thank you so much for your time. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you very much.